This is the Canon PRO-10, and this is the Canon PRO-300. Two very similar printers, but there really is no question as to which is the better printer because the Canon PRO-10 is no longer being made. Canon has discontinued this printer. They're no longer selling it, and with good reason because, this printer came out back in 2012, so it's been around for quite a while. Whereas the PRO-300 here is the newer printer. This came out just a couple of years ago in 2020, and it effectively replaces the Canon PRO-10 because both of these printers have the same maximum paper size of 13 by 19 inches, otherwise known as A3+. It's smaller and lighter than the PRO-10. It also has an LED screen here on the front, finally, as opposed to the blinking lights on the old PRO-10, which you had to look up in a manual. It was like Morse code. But all that said, at the end of the day, what truly matters is the print, right? You and I are going to find out whether there truly is a difference between prints out of the PRO-10 and the PRO-300 by printing the exact same image on the exact same paper using both printers. Going to make some prints, going to print them out, and then we're going to take a look at them together. Okay, so here we are. Through the magic of YouTube, we have jumped into the future. It's now the following day. The results are rather interesting. Okay, so pop quiz. If you were to guess right now which print is which do you think is the 300 and which do you think is the PRO-10? All right, now let me switch these up. Let me just change their position and let's see if a difference in position changes your mind. Which one do you think is the PRO-10 and which one do you think is the PRO-300? Okay, so the answer is PRO-300, PRO-10. Two very similar prints. The thing that the PRO-300 has going on that the PRO-10 does not overall is that there is richer density of color and tonality with the PRO-300. There's something with the blues and the greens here in the water and the blues up here on the side of this mountain, and also the hues of this kind of this brownish orange color in the boats over here. It's almost like the colors have greater depth, whereas the colors in the PRO-10 image just feel like a little bit thinner. And by the way, I'm not talking about saturation here. I'm talking about the depth of color. It's almost like how far back your eyes believe the color actually goes, even though, both of these are just, two-dimensional pieces of paper. There is something about the PRO-300 print that just has richer tonality, richer color that makes your eyes feel like it's a deeper image. It just seems to recede deeper back into the paper than the PRO-10, which feels like a little more surface. It feels almost like veneer. And let me just swap these around again so that just to make sure that we're being fair to both images when it comes to the lighting in the room and everything. There is, I'd say, a little more detail perhaps in the PRO-300 image, but I think some of that could be attributable to the deeper tonality because I feel like the blacks and the darker tones just feel a little bit deeper and richer in this, which I think creates the appearance of additional sharpness and clarity. Okay, so let's look at another image. All right, so now we're going to take a look at a black and white image. Now this is an image that I recently captured out in Utah, and let me line them up here for you. Let's play the same game again. Let's see if you can guess which one is which. Actually, I have a hair right in the middle here. Let me get that out. Okay, which one do you think is which? Which is the PRO-300 and which is the PRO-10? And again, just to be fair, I'm going to switch these up. Let me just move these around. Place them side by side like so. Well, if you guess PRO-300, you're right. This is the PRO-10 over here. Both of these images have been printed on the exact same paper. This is what is this? This is like a Baryta paper made by Hahnemuhle. Very premium paper. This is rather expensive paper, honestly. I have to say I'm somewhat frustrated with myself because I've printed a number of black and white images on the PRO-10 in the past. I never really noticed that big of an issue with the prints, but the thing that I noticed after I made my first print using the PRO-300 here is the fact that the PRO-10 does not print black and white as a true black and white image. The blacks and the grays are not neutral. there's a little bit of color cast happening in here. And I didn't apply any split toning to the original image. The original image is neutral, but when printed on the Pro-10, it comes out looking, there's like a little bit of red that has kind of seeped into this. And part of the reason that happens is because a lot of, many inkjet printers, when you print a black and white image, they don't just pull ink directly from the black cartridge. Like they pull ink from all the various cartridges that are in there in order to create a composite black, so to speak. So a lot of times you get blacks that have like, that kind of shift in one direction. Like they could be a little cool, a little warm, maybe a little green. But the Pro-300 image is very neutral. I mean, the blacks actually look black compared to the blacks in the Pro-10. There is, again, a little more texture, definitely a little more fine detail in the Pro-300 image. I can see it like over here in this back rock area, and I can definitely see a little more detail and separation between the tree in the background compared to the tree over here. Like it feels like it all just kind of blends together a little bit more on the Pro-10 print compared to the Pro-300, which feels a little more distinct. Like the edges feel, there's more clarity between the edges, which makes it appear a little bit sharper. Definitely a little bit nicer. Now, one of the things I was curious to know after making this print is that when you look in the marketing material for the Canon Pro-300, they talk about the fact that the Canon Pro-300 has a black and white printing mode, which they claim is perfectly neutral. But I didn't use that mode for this print. I just used the ICC profile from Hahnemuhle. But I was curious to know what would happen if I use that black and white print mode. Like, would it be any better? So I decided to print another image using that, and let's take a look at that. Okay, so both of these prints, no pop quiz here for you to guess. Both of these prints were printed using the Canon Pro-300. And and by the way, one of the interesting things about the Canon Pro-300 software is that you can create text. You can type in text and you can put some text in the header or the footer, which is great when you're making test prints. Okay, so same image, same paper, except this one here was printed using the manufacturer's ICC profile for the paper, whereas this one was printed using Canon's black and white print mode. And the way it works is that you basically have a choice between using a custom ICC profile or using the black and white mode. You can't enable the black and white mode and assign an ICC profile. This is essentially Canon's own thing here. It's something that they came up with in order to help you get better, more neutral looking black prints that actually look like black and white, as opposed to black and white that could have a little bit of color in there. So which one is better? Well, from what I can see so far, I think I prefer the ICC profile. I think the manufacturer's ICC profile does a better job of retaining the detail and texture that is in some of these darker areas of the image, especially like on the side of this rock over here. Whereas on the Canon black and white mode, everything kind of mushes together a little bit more tonally, like some of those dark tones fall like a little more quickly into pure black. And you're just not able to see quite as much texture or detail there. And again, the only difference between the two is I selected an ICC profile for this one, and this one I picked the black and white mode. Otherwise, same paper, same image. As far as the neutrality of color goes, I don't know if you're able to see that much of a difference, but I mean, like this one here may feel a little more gray comparatively. Let me just swap them actually so that we can see them in different light. I don't know. I mean, it's really similar. I mean, like this one, like almost feels like a little bit cooler, but I may be thinking that because of the tonality difference, because this one just looks darker. I would rather have detail and texture in some of these darker areas than having a perfectly neutral black. I mean, obviously it depends on the image. It depends on the one that you're creating. And I do need to experiment with this a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, I was initially, pretty excited to try the black and white mode, but my enthusiasm kind of went down when I realized that it worked independently, that it works without using a manufacturer's ICC profile. Personally, I would trust the manufacturer of the paper over Canon's own print mode. Okay, so next up we have Canon Luster paper. This is standard OEM paper that Canon sells. It's good paper. It's good all around paper. It's not like, heavier weight fine art paper that you can find through other people, but it's a good solid paper that a lot of people use. Which one do you think is the Pro-10 and which one is the Pro-300? Let's actually swap them around so you're able to see them in different light. And let's see if your opinion changes. So which one is Pro-10 and which one is Pro-300? Well, if you guessed Pro-300, you're right. And this one over here is the Pro-10. So again, similar story to what we saw with the color image at the beginning of this video. Very similar story happening here where the colors just feel, especially like up here in this cloud up here in the sky, they feel just a little bit richer, a little bit denser, a little more vibrant. Like I'm getting more of a like more glow in the highlights here in the atmosphere. Whereas the same area over here in the Pro-10 print, they like feel a little bit more muted, a little more gray. Now, another thing some of you probably notice is the difference in tonality between this this grass here compared to the grass in the Pro-10 print. In the Pro-300 print, there's just more texture, more detail. It's also a little bit brighter. There's better tonality. You're able to see more in some of these darker regions around here compared to the Pro-10 print where everything just kind of gets blocked up. Everything gets a little bit muddier. It feels less distinct. And this is something that I would actually struggle with the Pro-10 quite a bit, is that I would find that when a brightness value dropped below like a certain level, when it was like a pretty dark value, it would reach a certain point and then it would just drop right into black. Like it would just immediately turn black and get dark and just get really muddied up. And I would always have to, lift the blacks in the image in order to help bring back some of the detail in the shot. Whereas the Pro-300 just is more sophisticated. Like it just has better tonality, better rendition of these darker areas. So again, similar story where the Pro-10 image just feels a little bit flatter, a little more two-dimensional, while the Pro-300 has greater depth and just feels more three-dimensional in comparison. Okay, so really interesting results here. I had no idea what to expect, like, not just with this image, but all other images that you saw in this video. Because I never printed to a Pro-300, I never printed to a Pro-1000 either. So the Pro-10 was the only printer I had experience with. So I had no idea, what I was going to get. And to answer that fundamental question of like, how much of a difference is there truly, like between the Canon Pro-10 and the Pro-300? Is there a noticeable difference? Well, I think it's a rather complicated question to answer because it's a little bit of yes and a little bit of no. Because yes, there is definitely a difference when it comes to the, how much richer the tonality is. The colors are a little bit denser. The image just feels like it has a little more shape, a little more dimension and depth from the 300 than the same image using the Pro-10. The Pro-10 just feels like a little bit thinner and a little more two-dimensional in comparison. But that said, prints from the Pro-10 are not bad at all. I mean, the Pro-10 prints are actually quite good. I've had no problem with them for the past few years. It's a great printer. So if you currently own a Canon Pro-10, you're perfectly happy with it, perfectly happy with the prints you're getting, you're not going to see like a huge difference by going up to the 300. It will be better, but it's not going to be like, like a huge difference than what it is that you're currently getting out of the Pro-10. I think if you're someone who's like particular about your prints, like, you really are obsessive about detail and texture and the darker areas and the richness of color and things like that, which are things that I get nerdy about and things that I get passionate and excited about, then yeah, then it would be worth upgrading too. But otherwise, I mean, the Pro-10 is still a really good printer. So anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this comparison video. I hope it was helpful if you're thinking about getting a 300. And hope you learned something about it. If you have any questions, feel free, by the way, to reach out and contact me. You'll find my contact information in the video description down below. And by the way, if you want to check out pricing information, additional information about the Canon Pro-300, I will link to that down below. In addition to the papers that I used in this video, some of my recommended papers that I would recommend checking out if you are into making your own prints. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.